Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Webinar Wednesday. My name is Brandon Lilly, Senior Brand Director here at Marketing 360. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about LinkedIn, and I think we're actually going to turn this into a LinkedIn series. There's a lot of different pieces to this marketing, a lot of different pieces to this social technology that I think we can really unpack and we can really dive into that's going to provide some great value. If you want to follow along with this presentation, go ahead and go to m360.us/CD57. Again, that's m360.us/CD57. Sorry. So a couple of things that we're going to discuss today is just kind of a brief overview of LinkedIn. There's always been some questions about that. Is it just a job platform? What is it now? Different campaign features that exist for businesses. Specifically, we're going to dive in today on sponsored content campaigns. Those are essentially the most important, or at least the most robust type of campaign that you can run. So we're going to cover exactly how to set those up during this webinar. We're going to talk about building an audience or utilizing an audience, and then we'll go over some final thoughts and answer any questions that come in live. So if you guys do have questions, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, we're live on both channels. Please feel free to chat me. I'd love to answer those while we're here. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's talk about kind of the platform campaigns, different kind of channels that you can operate. So one of the primary things that I always hear, especially for people that are used to operating within the Google Ads kind of environment, is text ads, right? That's really where Google got its start, and that's where a lot of PPC or pay-per-click marketers, digital marketers, really got started too. So text ads are kind of that easy thing to fall into when you are first jumping into LinkedIn. However, I want to caution you, text ads on the LinkedIn platform are fantastic for earning impressions. The problem is they don't really have a true actionable purpose because they're kind of hard to see and they just get buried by everything else. If it was up to me, I would never run a text campaign on LinkedIn unless they make some dramatic changes to how that operates and how you're charged, because you're charged based on impression. I would stay away from them. It sounds like an easy step in, but I can just about promise you, you're going to lose money on that. It's going to cost you money and time. So sponsored content is the most common kind of first step. So that's what we're going to talk about and dive into today, specifically as it relates to setting it up, how you can use content that's already been created, or how you can create your own content. So we'll talk about that a little bit more here later. Sponsored in-mail can also be extremely powerful with the right message. In my testing, I've generally seen about a 40 to 55% open rate, which is very powerful. That's a better open rate than email. The argument could be made that people are going through and just opening it just to get rid of the notification. Granted, that argument could be made with email as well, just opening it and closing it. You know, they don't want to actually look at it, or opening and deleting. So you kind of want to think about it there. But if you're providing good information and your targeting is really good, then in-mail can be an incredibly powerful message and a great way to get into the inbox of the exact people that you're targeting. We'll talk more about that in another webinar. I think we'll do that a little bit later, probably next month. So stay tuned for that. And then finally, dynamic ads. So it's a newer solution that LinkedIn has been rolling out. And this solution relies very heavily on personalization. So for instance, I create an ad and you see it. That ad could be related to you specifically, such as where you work, your profile picture, your name, your location, something like that, to make it very heavily personalized to you. So that may be another webinar that we do in the future as well, after we do some more testing and see what kind of value that brings. Let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to move to our next slide here, and we're going to talk about setting up the sponsored content campaign. So you go to LinkedIn, you want to create your ads, you start building that. Once you click in and you've created and named your very first campaign group, then you select what kind of ads you want to run. And in this situation, we're going to select sponsored content. So with sponsored content, there are additional opportunities here. You can send people to your website or content on the site. You can collect leads using LinkedIn's lead gen forms. Or if you're promoting video, you can specifically target getting more video views, and LinkedIn's algorithm will specifically focus that on users and people that have a tendency to watch more video. Collecting the leads using LinkedIn can be incredibly powerful, very similar in functionality to how Facebook's lead ads work, where it will pre-populate information based off of the user's profile. However, to get us started here, we're going to talk about sending people to the website and generating traffic that way. Now, you'll also notice that that is the only option that also includes the checkbox for increase followers for my company page by adding a follow button. If that is your goal, if you want to increase followers on your page, this is the only way really to do that from an ads perspective. So keep that in mind. In this situation, we select that we're going to send people to the website. You can select if you want followers on the company page as well as a kind of an alternative. And then we'll move to our next slide here. This is where you get to pick your ad format. Now, similar to what you would experience on Facebook, you can choose to just have a single image. In this case, they refer to it as the article, image, or link. You can choose a carousel, which is a cycle of images that people can click through, or you can use video, create a video ad to engage your target audience. Video ad in the sponsored content campaign may be incredibly valuable, or you may want to go back and actually use the video views functionality for your video campaign. I highly recommend testing both opportunities and seeing which one works best for you. So let's go ahead and select the article, image, or link and move to our next slide. This is where you get to select if you have available content, if you have content that's previously been sponsored, or if you need to create this sponsored content. You'll notice in the upper left-hand corner, I have 144 pieces of available marketing content that I can use to sponsor. I have 0 sponsored content on this campaign. That's okay. If you look down a little bit, you'll see the checkbox there. That's content that currently exists. It's available content. That's the early tests with Google's smart shopping campaigns. If we wanted to promote that, all we have to do is we just select that button, click sponsor selected content, and we would go right into developing our audience. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So we're going to go a little bit more of a different way, and we're going to create sponsored content. Let's say you don't have any. You haven't been posting organically on your LinkedIn company page. You just don't have anything currently created to pull from, so we're going to create some from scratch. Let's move to our next slide here. This is where you're going to create this content. So we click Create Sponsored Content. First thing you do is you name it. In this case, I'm building a retargeting campaign. I highly recommend on every platform you have the opportunity to set up a retargeting campaign. You're only going to be reaching people that have already been to your site. So there's incredible value here. If it makes sense for your business and you have the opportunity, set up your retargeting campaigns on Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest. There's value on all of those because those people have already been to your website. So you definitely want to make sure you've got campaigns there. We're building one here. Now, directly below that and to the right of the Marketing 360 logo there, you'll see a link URL. This is a little tricky. You could, if you wanted to, come in here and just add a body of text, add an image, call it good. In this case, we want to send people to our website, specifically the digital marketing platform overview. So I add that URL in there, and LinkedIn will dynamically create an ad headline and an ad description, which you see there below. It'll also dynamically pull in a thumbnail if I don't already have one created. Now that's excellent because it gets me started, but as you can see there with the ad description, we're over the character limit by 154 characters. One little irritating thing here, you can't actually expand that to see the whole body of text. So you do have to be a little careful, make sure that you're not going overboard on the amount of text that you're using there. So you put in your ad headline, you put in your ad description, and then let's move to our next slide here. You remove that URL. Now don't refresh the page or you're gonna have to start everything over again, but remove the URL. LinkedIn will still remember where it pulled all this information from. See down there at the very bottom in the gray letters, domain, marketing360.com. It remembers that that's where it got pulled from. So you remove that URL and you add in what you want your actual ad copy to be. If you don't do this, you will post an ad, a sponsored content, and it will have a reconfigured LinkedIn short code URL. So it'll be LinkedIn's little short code. It'll still link to your page, but that's all the content there is, and that's not really going to provide value. So remove that, add in your content. In this case, we've got get the best tools you need to market and grow your business and a dedicated marketing team who does everything for you. Our ad headline, you see we changed that. The #1 marketing platform for small business. And then our ad description, which isn't seen very often by most LinkedIn users, but it is still something that exists. Everything you need to grow your business from one platform and one team. Great. Great value there, pretty easy. And we left the thumbnail alone. Although you see that little pencil there, you can replace that if you'd like to. So moving on to our next slide, we've saved this. And then if you'll notice, what it does is it creates this direct sponsored content. This is back where we started. You can see I've got the 144 pieces of available content, but this is the one I've selected. Just because you hit create sponsored content does not mean that you have sponsored it. So you have to hit the checkbox again and then select the blue button in the upper right-hand corner, sponsor selected content. Very important. If you leave this page, you lose the risk of maybe losing the ad. That's not really what you want. So the UI isn't exactly user-friendly right here. It doesn't tell you that you have to take that next step. So it's not really intuitive. Check that box, hit sponsor selected content. You can also, if you want to, you can duplicate it. You'll see these over in the actions section on the right-hand side. You can duplicate the ad and then go back in and edit it with the pencil. Maybe you want to try a different headline or something like that. Or you want to preview it on your desktop and mobile devices. Click the little eye there, and then you can take a look and see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and click sponsor selected content, and we're going to move on to our audience setup. This is where the real power of LinkedIn starts to come into play. Now, in this situation, we're creating a retargeting campaign, but you don't have to do that. Now, it will recommend, and honestly, it recommends this almost all the time, is retarget your website visitors, and it tells you to create an audience, right? So you see that button right there, create an audience. If you haven't already created one, this is the next step. This is the place to create that. Once an audience is created, and in this situation, we've included all site visitors. So anybody who has visited our site can see these ads. There's not really an easy way to see that or an intuitive way to see that unless you click over and on the blue hypertext there it says see full list. So if you have a lot of different audiences created and built out, maybe based on the web page that they visited, different actions that they took on the site, something like that, you'll want to hit see full list unless you just remember what that audience list is, in which case you can start typing in the name and it will populate the ones for you to select. In this case, we've included all site visitors. Now you do have to, after this next step, you do have to select a location. So in this situation, we've selected the United States, and we've specifically said that we want to target people who permanently live or work in the US, not travelers or visitors or people that maybe are outside of the North American kind of US area. Does that mean that you're never going to get those folks? No, it doesn't, but it does help to kind of constrict that. Not incredibly important for us as we are a global marketing agency. However, just for ease of use and just to showcase this to you, we've gone ahead and selected only US. This does, however, become more important when you're talking about targeting state by state, or maybe even narrower than that. You know, you can target down to cities or towns. So you may want to use that. Don't have to, but you can. This is also a place where you would upload a list of accounts or contacts. If you have a large email list that you've curated yourself, you can upload that. Or if you go after more of the account-based marketing and account-based targeting, if you have a large list of companies you want to target, you can upload that here as well and use that as your audience. So let's go to our next slide. This is actually on the same page. You just slide down, and this is where you start to narrow that audience. Now, if you didn't select an audience, you just selected a location, these are the next pieces that you'll utilize in order to do your targeting. These can be company name, industry, company size, job title, which job title is incredibly powerful, especially since Facebook pulled most of that from their own targeting options. Another could be job function, the seniority, schools they went to, fields of study, degrees, their skills. If you have a personal profile on LinkedIn, you know that people can endorse you for skills. So this is where you would target that. Member groups, same thing. On LinkedIn, you have an opportunity to be connected with a lot of like-minded groups. So that's where you would target that. Gender, age, years of experience, how many followers followed the company page, or different company connections. Now, this can get a little tricky because as you select these, you'll find that other specific targeting criteria will get grayed out and you will no longer have that option. That's because LinkedIn's system is smart enough to know when you're overlapping too much. So you won't be able to target too many different things. If you try to target fields of study and degrees, that would be one of those where it's not really going to allow you to overlap. I believe job function and member skills is another one. They overlap a lot, So I really like to go after job title. Industry can be powerful, although it's a set segment of industries. So if the industry is not listed, it's not something you can target. So that's where you would lean towards job title. For instance, maybe you work you work with plumbers like we do. We do a lot of marketing with plumbers and roofers and people like that. Well, that's not really an industry necessarily to target, but it is a job title that a lot of people like to use. Master plumber, master electrician, roofer. So we could target job title, but not industry. So you want to really seriously consider the kind of audience that you're targeting and how you can best get this in front of them. Years of experience can also be incredibly powerful because you may find that consumers or businesses that you're going after, if they're in their first year or first 2 years of experience, they may not be established enough to need your services or want them. But people that have been in business or had 3, 4, 5 years of experience may be a lot more valuable for you. So you can narrow your audiences that way. Keep in mind, as you make these selections, you'll find that your audience either grows or it shrinks. Because based on your targeting and based on what you select, you are either adding to the audience, so it's this, or you're narrowing the audience, which is this and this. So they have to have this title and this skill, or they have to have this job function and be this old, stuff like that. So you want to think about that as you're building the audience. No real wrong moves to make here. If you need to change the audience, change it. If you want to try something else, try something else. And if you find that you make a mistake, you can always just delete that portion and start it over again. So very easy to work with. 2 other pieces of content here. One is enable the LinkedIn audience network. Now this is the publishers outside of LinkedIn. It could make sense for you and your business, or it may not. In this case, because we're building a retargeting campaign, obviously we are fine with people seeing our ads outside of just LinkedIn. So utilizing LinkedIn's publishing is no problem. Now, the next one down below here is enable audience expansion. And you see this on some other channels, Facebook being another one that allows you to expand the audience based on activity that's happening within the audience you've targeted. This allows LinkedIn to expand the audience. So if you have a product or a service that's fairly broad and you've allowed and you built an audience around people that would probably really enjoy this, but you know what, if someone outside this audience needs this product or service, that's fine too, then I highly recommend you enable audience expansion. In this situation, because we're retargeting and we only want to reach people that have currently been on our site, we would normally uncheck this. I wanted to leave it checked so you could see the little icon below it, target new audience, similar to the audience for this campaign. So for retargeting, we don't want to grow that audience. We only want that to grow as people visit the site. But if you did want to expand the audience, if you have a broad enough reach, then that can be pretty powerful for you also. Let's go to our next slide here. This is the kind of the last piece of this audience setup here. First, what's the goal of your campaign? In this situation, obviously, it's website conversion. So we want people to visit the site, learn about our services and our software, and then convert by filling out a lead form so that we can communicate with them. So we've selected website conversions, and you'll see that this says maximize the number of people taking a valuable action on your website. That's all we're looking for. Now, we also have conversion tracking set up. So you'll definitely want to track your conversions. You can set multiple different types of things that will track conversions. And you can set them either to, if you want like a thank you page, they only get there after they fill out a form, or a kind of that end of the shopping experience. They bought something, so they get the confirmation. That could be your conversion page. You'll want to set that up and then select what conversion that you're doing here. Give yourself a daily campaign. Keep in mind, just like Google and Facebook, LinkedIn can overspend a daily campaign by up to 20%. You can choose different bid types, such as the automated bid, which seems to work fairly well. The algorithm kind of chooses to bid higher for this viewer, lower for this viewer, just kind of depends. Or you can do that cost per click bid, in which case you do it manually. So you may not want to do that. You may want to do that. Just depends on what you're trying to maintain and what you're trying to manage. You can also, and one thing about the daily budget is you do have to have a minimum budget of at least $10. We recommend at least 15. just to make sure that you can get that kind of traction. Now, down at the bottom here, you'll see that you can give yourself a total budget. So you can give yourself a budget that's lower than your daily. That's okay. That just means that it's only going to run for a couple of days or until that budget cap is met. That may be part of your goals. That may be all right. Or you don't want to put a total budget in here and you're fine with day by day. If it reaches it. That's great. So you do have a little bit of additional control over your spending, which you'll want to keep an eye out. Start the campaign immediately, or if you're doing a holiday campaign, you can push that out. Same with the end date. This can run forever, or you can set an end date maybe after a sale or something like that. And then finally, your ad rotation. I always recommend optimize for performance. There's not really much of a reason to allow ads to enter the auction and kind of cycle through evenly, unless what you're looking for is one ad to rise to the top and it's been minor changes across each ad. But honestly, otherwise, LinkedIn will do that for you. LinkedIn will automatically kind of rotate the ads around, and whichever one rises to the top is the one that gets shown the most. So up to you, but I usually recommend that you optimize for performance. All right, let's go to our last slide here. These are just some final thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate you taking the time. I hope this has been useful. Some last thoughts on LinkedIn. This is a great way to get your brand in front of other businesses. So specifically because Facebook removed job titles, this gives you that opportunity back. So you can do your targeting the way you were and reach people when they're on a professional business platform. Retargeting is a no-brainer. I don't care if you're trying to reach businesses or not. If someone's been to your site, they should see your ad wherever they go. So having an ad on LinkedIn in the form of retargeting is a cheap and easy way to make sure that they are seeing your brand, and it's very valuable to you. Set that up regardless. You don't have to give it a huge budget, but you do need to have retargeting. One other thing that I've noticed is that LinkedIn appears to be more of a lead influencer, not always a lead generator. This kind of fits in with this retargeting concept. People, especially business people, they've got their guard up. Professionals, we have our guard up all the time, right? We're constantly getting hit up by salesmen. You're constantly getting those cold calls, cold emails, people reaching out, trying to sell you stuff just because they found your name somewhere. So when you're on LinkedIn or when you're targeting folks on LinkedIn, their guard is usually up. That's okay though, because if they interact with your ad, they go to your website in one way or the other, now you have an opportunity to reach them on other platforms. If you followed what I said in the beginning, which is to ensure that you've got retargeting set up with Google, with Facebook, you've got it on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, all of that, because at that point, now you're reaching them when their guard is down. You're reaching them when they're at home and they're just scrolling through on their phone, or they're just researching, or maybe catching up after a long day, something like that. Real people use LinkedIn, so B2C can be just as valuable as B2B. In fact, we're seeing it more and more where consumer-based products and services are finding that they can get a foothold within LinkedIn. It's not a nameless, faceless business that's searching here or interacting. It's actual people. So if you have built the audience the way that you need to and you've really focused and targeted, you can actually see some great value from a B2C standpoint, especially because not a lot of businesses are doing it. So there's kind of a wide open market here for businesses of any kind that really want to reach out to people. All right, our last slide here. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. If you'd like to view this presentation again or access these slides, you can at m360.us/cd57. We've got extra resources at youtube.com/marketing360. Or if you'd like to learn a little bit more about us, about our marketing platform and our talent and technology solution, you can go to marketing360.com/start. Fill out the information there and we'll get you set up and we'll have a conversation. Thanks so much for watching and happy marketing.